Yeah, this is the Daytona Beach Toy and Comic Con. Walking around just checking out stuff. I have all these. Look at this. This is the best of the best right here. This is primo. That Fantastic Four, $4,300, a bargain. But not today. Today, we're gonna talk to someone very special. Someone you all know and love. This man right here. Hard at work, drawing Minnie Mouse. Hey, it's the Comic Artist Pro Secrets channel. I'm Ethan Van Sciver. Just
allergy fit, sorry.
That's okay.
Fall allergies.
I've got them too. I'm just a humble ink and superhero merchant. Here's another one. Another humble ink and superhero merchant. This is Billy Tucci, living legend. Billy, we're going to talk about SHI, Way of the Warrior #1. Is that okay?
I think that would be pretty fantastic.
So what we've got here is we've got a reprint of the very first issue of SHI, right?
Yes, we do. What's cool is that this is a sketch cover, and it was made specifically for the Paris Comic Con, and it's a reprint. It's 20 years later. But what's so cool about it is that this original comic that's inside of this cover is what was launched 1,000 ships, if you will. And because of this comic, I was able to do a comic convention in Paris. They flew me and my wife in, and we were guests and treated us like a king and a queen. And it's all because of the contents which was inside of this book.
So let's talk about the year that you...
Yeah, and the year is 1994. When it came out. SHI was released in March. I think it shipped the last week in March, 1994, or the 23rd of March, I think, 94 it shipped. Or was in stores, one or the other. And it exploded. We had initial orders of 37,000 copies, and I somehow was able to convince my printer to do 50,000, but I had no money. But I think I was so enthusiastic about it, I was able to get this book printed. The year before, I probably made in total maybe $6,000 doing freelance, doing Betty Boop t-shirts and things like that, and a lot of children's wear. And another funny thing about this book, though, is that I met Fred Pierce at Valiant, who was at Valiant at the time, on a chance meeting, and he loved the work. And he was able to call Spartan Printing in Sparta, Illinois, and had them print this book for me for nothing. Wow. I mean, I had to pay them, of course, when it was done, but without paying them. And I owe a great debt to Fred, and he's become a great friend over the years.
Let's crack this open. Let's talk about it.
Okay, now again, you have to understand this is their version of it. This book was made. It's not. It is all the original pages, which was colored by my friend Barry Orkin, who used Doc Martens dyes and some watercolors and perhaps some gouache. So the reproduction isn't as good as the first one, but it's still, you still can get it. You can get an idea of it. And this was a scandal because I had her meditating in the nude. And apparently one didn't do that back then, and mainstream comics are, for the most part, in, I guess, mainstream accepted independent comics. And threw a lot of stuff in from Swanzoo, and this is from Taekwondo, who's another strategist, and you know, the first line of SHI, I haven't read this in forever. Enliven the mind without dwelling on anything. To achieve the way... The mind must be focused, it must be free. So now I have her dreaming, and of course she's naked. Oops, sorry.
Get on my pen.
And again, this was, oh my God, people lost their minds. But the book did well. A little Hokusai reference is a huge influence on me. Japanese woodblocks is a huge influence on me.
Yeah, we've seen you do this again.
Yeah,
in
I did
Justice
that.
League
Yes,
cover.
I did the Justice League number 15 cover using that. And it's just such an iconic image, and it's just, what a graphic. It's timeless, and you give him due credit where credit is due, of course. And Arashi, you know, it means storm in Japanese, and you find out that he is the antagonist of the story, Masahiro Arashi, Yakuza boss. And Anna, you also notice Anna has green eyes. I made her Amerasian, and the main reason why I made her Amerasian and gave her green eyes is for color. so I can add another color to it. So I think, oh, green eyes will look nicer than brown eyes in a colored book. If I'm doing all this color and paying for this color I can't afford, why not use as much colors as possible?
So talk about your process back then. Did you use a lot of reference? What were the tools that you were using back then?
I did. I mostly posed like my wife today, my girlfriend back at the time, that she would pose for me, and I'd wake her up at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, honey, I need you to come down here and pose. I have great photos of that too, of her looking pretty miserable. But another interesting thing is how I draw, being left-handed. When I start a page, I lay it out as a rough on Xerox paper, and then I always put it over a light box. Okay. And then I'll literally just clean it all up on the light box, and then I'll proceed to ink it. Here at this time, we were using inkers, but I was never happy with them. I felt that a lot was lost when other people had inked my book, until I met Michael Baer, interestingly enough, and Mike Baer was fantastic. He's a virtuoso inker, and I don't think my works ever looked as good with Mike Baer, but I didn't know anyone at this point.
So these aren't your inks, or
they
are
are
they?
Not my, well, some of them are. I inked a lot of it,
okay.
But I hired an inker, and he actually held the pages, even though the agreement was that he would do it on spec, and I would pay him, maybe I paid him $200, but about 2 weeks before the book was supposed to ship, and I was doing these pages as they came in, he held them hostage for like $4,000 or something, whatever it was, $2,000, and I had to scrounge around to all my friends to scrounge some money to pay him, or he wouldn't give me my pages back.
Wow. Yikes.
And that's why he only inked one and only issue of SHI. And then when SHI exploded, I guess he was a little, you know, where's some new pages? I'm like, yeah, I'll get them to you.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't have done that to you.
You're right. And then another thing I did, which was a little different, we did the pages. I'm a huge fan of Alphonse Mucha, so I was able to round the pages, and as the book went on, as we started to actually connect them, which is a nice subliminal way of people to follow the pages, you know, the panels through.
Very cool.
So, and then now we bring her back to her weapons room. She's in her apartment. Again, oh, so tantalizing with the legs, and I remember Debbie posing for that, and that as well. And I would just take what you call it, Polaroids.
Yeah.
I had a Polaroid camera, and I remember, I don't know, it was at one of a photography place in New York City. I'm from Long Island, but I lived in the city after college and during college, and it was like one of them photography places, J&M or something like that, and they had a huge sale on Polaroid film. Because even you're talking 1990s, if not 93, no one's really using them anymore. So I bought packages and packages of them. So I have all these great Polaroids of my wife posing, and then of course she grabs the swords, and
so
you know, just nice, just fun stuff. You know, I wanted to give it, and what I love about Barry's coloring as well, and it almost has a stained glass appearance to it.
Oh, this background is
it was really beautiful, and we were just kids having a lot of fun with it. And then the iconic image, which I went in and touched up with colored pencil, because it was too bland, and I needed it to pop. Another interesting thing here is that this is not the original face. I drew the face, and it was inked, and it didn't come. The inking didn't. The way I inked it didn't come out as well. I inked this image. And I had to take the cover image, the cover, and I shrunk it down on the Xerox machine, and I pasted it on. So that's the same faces on the cover.
So tell me about how this costume came about.
Yeah, you know, the character originally started as a man, and a male character, and I remember trying to pitch it to other publishers. I pitched it to a company called Triumphant Comics. I pitched it to Defiant, I think. Couple of these other people, and they were all like, girl books don't sell. You know, if we do publish this book, we own 50% of the character. Another one was, you'll start getting royalties when we have sales of over 50,000 copies. And I was like, the hell with these guys. I'll do my own book. So, getting back to the costume, I just found this really great quilting in Japanese woodblock prints. A lot of samurai wore the quilting underneath their armor and all. And I thought it was functional. Of course, you know, I was a young, red, hot-blooded young man, so I wanted something a little sexy, little ninja-esque or whatever. And that's pretty much how it came about. It's armored up here with the quilting, and then, of course, you know, to make it look good. I came up with this character in 1990. I designed her. So think back then. It's before the whole X-Men explosion, Jim Lee, the whole thing, but it still had that 90s feel or late 80s feel. And
it doesn't feel dated though, does it?
I don't think it does. I mean, we have the new book. I'm coming out with a new book in 2018 called SHI, Return of the Warrior. And it's going to be 20 years after this. So now Anna will be a mom. She'll be, and her warrior days are far behind her, and then it all comes back. And I will have a fun part of her trying on this costume, and like, how the hell did I ever get my leg into this, or ripping it, or something like that.
That's a great
And, she wears the SHI coin is the choker, which you learn later on is that Masahiro Arashi, the man who had slain her family, left it as a calling card, a coin, and which showed that was his moniker for his whatever they are, his assaults on fellow crime families or whatever. And she basically, the SHI story is, to get to it, is that Anna is a soldier in a war that's existed for 1,000 years. It's a battle between the SHI warriors, which are the descendants of the warrior monks, and the samurai, and a lot of the samurai into becoming the yakuza. So this shadow war has transitioned over to the arts, to politics, to business, and she's a soldier in it. She's drafted into this war that she has no stake in whatsoever, aside from go do this. They killed your father, and now you have to. It's a vengeance story, and she's not a vengeance type character.
She has honor.
Yeah, I try to have the whole thing about honor and faith, and the conflicting duality of a character or of anyone's life, and we've done pretty well with it. So I'm going now to this, and these came out really nice. Here's the coin, which, look at this. Here's something interesting, Ethan. Look. The coin is now, she's putting it on. Look, is this a mistake that was in the original? I don't think so. I think in the original, this is a reprint, the coin is on her neck. Look at that, a faux pas. Whoops. Which I've just discovered. I have to go back to the original issue, because here the coin is on, but then she's putting the coin on here. Look. She's opening the box with the coin. Jiminy Crickets.
Continuity error.
Yeah,
there.
continuity editorial editor. I have to find the editor and I'll shake him down. Billy Tucci. I also did the kanji wrong because I wasn't familiar with the proper way to do it. If you see it here, it's a little better, but this little piece right here is actually separate. So she's trying to open the doors, and now you see she's in New York City. You think she's in this Japanese sanctuary, and of course she reaches for her main weapon, which is the naginata, and out she leaps into the New York City night. And to throw our action in, we have the scene of a gang of thugs attacking police officers. People just think, oh, it's another superhero story or whatever, or a vigilante story, but these thugs and this police officer actually play a big role in the series. You find that in later on issues. But it was just fun. I had never done a comic before, so I was having fun. Look at it, that every panel is like a painting almost. What's a great shot of a scene how about the shot from the thing with the lights of the police car leading her shadow as she starts going into an alleyway.
Now, this was the thing to do back in the 90s too. Alleyway. See, that's how you introduce a hero.
Yep. And the story is basically primarily a lot of ghosts, ghosts of the former warriors, the former SHI warriors, which with it are inside of her weapon and all, and they guide her. And so we have the ghosts rising. It's nice, probably acrylic white paint, going over this. And of course, I have a great photo of this of me and my wife, me posing the same thing. She goes in. She's getting ready. The SHI warriors are leading her forward. And she starts scraping it. What is that sound? Blah, blah, blah. Who are you? And then she just starts laying into him. Again, 90s. And having great flashbacks and scenes of SHI warriors versus samurai. As she's literally not there when she's fighting. She thinks she's on a battlefield somewhere far away. I guess to stay away from the concept of actual murder that she's committing. And just fun. Great. I just had a lot of fun. I love drawing samurai armor, battles, things like that, and pretty girls. And she's pretty much, she gets the one female bad person on there, and she kills her. Yeah. He just runs her through with a Tonto dagger. Oh. How brutal. Young Bill Tucci is. Lifts this dude up with his Yankee shirt again. He decapitated him. Oh, she lets one guy go.
Why?
Because he wasn't armed. The only one not armed. And he plays a big part in the story later on, too. And then we talk about, let's see, what does that say here? The warrior knows that the coward has lost.
So how much research went into getting this kind of thing correct?
I'm a Swan Tzu and God, so many of the strategies, the 36 stratagems from the Chinese art of war, which became Senryaku. I have hundreds of books on Japan, on the samurai, Japanese philosophy, Japanese woodblock art. It's just Japan is such an amazing cultural because they take making tea to an art form. And the presentation of food to even the lower classes as an art form, yet it's the most violent society, amongst one of the most violent societies, history has ever known. Especially being how clean they are and honorable and all, but it's a fine line of honor and dishonor. And now we go to her, and there's the police officer survives. She reaches down to check if she's okay, and off she goes. And now here we are. Park Avenue and East 69th Street. The police detective, at the hospital. So, and here's our cops, Joe LaBianca, which is my friend John's father, who passed away just 2 years ago, sadly, Mr. LaBianca. And Pete Denise, which is one of my best friend's father's name. Pete was a World War II veteran. He passed away, too. And this is the reporters, the police officers checking things out. What's going on in all this? Murder in an alley. What the hell? What the devil? And now we go to the Oiki Gallery. And where Anna works. She is, and this is my wife to this day hates this pose. This was an outfit she had, which I loved. Actually, when I came down when she came to visit me at basic training in the Army, she wore something similar to this. And I loved, so 80s, the hunter green and the off-white, or the white. And she just said, no one can pose like that. The way she was kind of twisting. But I'm like, it looks good. And no one didn't seem to bother anybody. And now we get to Masahiro Arashi calls, and you see the fear in her eyes as she's talking to him, and the print kind of swirls into this demon of Arashi, and then she composes herself. And this is something cool. This is Arashiyama. This is his building. He's a big mogul, real estate mogul now, businessman, and he's got this beautiful modern building in New York City, but atop it is like a replica of an old Japanese mansion, old Japanese castle. And it's called Arashiyama, which means storm mountain. The old computers. I'm thinking of the old cordless phones. Machete-wielding maniac. And she's the machete-wielding maniac who wants to sell this print. And the print is it's Kuniyoshi. It's taken off of him, and it's of a warrior. His men are all dead around him, and he's finally going to commit seppuku and take himself out. But it's a lot of fun I had with designs. Again, I never made a comic before. Oh yeah, now I started going in. As you see, I started to join the panels.
Oh, look
so
at
this
that.
book was a big
You're
progression.
Like Muka.
As the book is going on. I mean, this book was a journey. It probably took me 7-8 months to draw this issue, and I kept redrawing pages over and over again. Again, I was fresh out of college. That's
what you do, isn't it? You tend to just want to perfect everything and redraw it over and over again.
And my storytelling got better, I feel, because we lead to this panel, to this. This is a nice connection between the two, and then you just follow her hair down to that panel. Things like that. And these word balloons are actually on acetate over the painted pages. So they were actually Xerox down on Bristol board, probably 9x12. And then I printed these out on my friend's Macintosh 2. For some reason, he had a comic book font, and I'm sitting there pasting these down, and kind of fun. I really should do an artist edition of this book. And now we go to Masahiro Arashi, and she's stalking him now. She's checking him out, and he's got his gaijin girl, and she's watching, and she's getting flashbacks of when he did to her family. And that's her, her father, her brother, her as a child. There's some poor homeless chap, and he ends up taking him because he told him, don't come around, don't soil my place. And he's like, I'm just looking for some food, Mr. Arashi, and he actually literally stabs this dude. He just well, this is the villain. He's the villain, and I'm getting it look even more Muka-esque as I'm going along. And I just remember her, and then now she has a chance to actually take out this man who just killed this innocent, she's just slaughtered 8 people in an alley. You could tell, and she's frozen with fear. And he drops a coin to him as well, and she remembers the coin. And what does he say? You're truly a disgrace. You have dishonored me for the last time. And then she crawls down to comfort her. And this is actually a cross that my wife bought me in a Jersey City mall. Oh. So I use that cross, and it's actually, I just have to solder it because some of the brass ends are coming along. But she's with him. He asks if she's an angel, and she's like, I'm no angel. And he literally dies in her arms. And she thinks of her mom and her, and that's it. How it is. She just forgive me, you know, for I failed again. So it ends with your character literally failing in so many ways. And we had, again, 37,000 orders. I was able to convince the printer to make 50,000. Thank you to Fred Pierce. And within 3 weeks, we had reorders for over 140,000 copies of the book. And I'm like, that's it. I said, we only have 50. I kept probably 3, maybe 2 boxes for myself. And they're all gone now.
So let me ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I remember being an East Coast guy in the 90s, and I remember East Coast, one of the things that kind of separated us from the West Coast and the Image Boys was, that Alphonse Mucha influence. Now, do you feel like maybe you were the first guy to bring that to comics, or do you think it was happening because Joe Quesada was doing it?
Yeah, Ninjak, I think Joe had a lot of great Mucha influences in Joe. His work is really, Joe is like a combination of Hellboy's Mignola and Alphonse Mucha.
Yeah.
Think about that. I mean, he's just fantastic. He still is a league of his own. But no, I just love Mucha. I went to school for fashion illustration, and I love the Art Nouveau, and people still ask me to do. I just did a commission for somebody with a nice Mucha influence to it.
So talk about how this book changed your life.
Oh my God. Here's the funny thing is I knew the book was going to do well. I just knew in my heart that there was something special about this book. I didn't know it was going to have the effect that it had, or it was like a ripple effect. It just exploded. And then what I did also, and here's maybe a lesson for people wanting to publish their own books, if you go through Diamond, this book, I didn't solicit the second issue until this was on the stands. So most people will solicit issue number 2 the next month, or even the month after that if it's bi-monthly. Your numbers are immediately half that, it seems, because of the number 2. This book was such a big hit, and people couldn't get their hands on it. Our numbers from number 1 to number 2 went from 37,000 initial orders to 80,000 orders for number 2. So there's more number 2s out there than this. And then I just printed to the order. I didn't print any extra. And that's what I kept doing for the next 6, 7 issues or 8 issues. I just printed to order. I did not have extras. I didn't have a lot at the shows. Maybe a box or 2 I'd have for myself. But to keep that thing going. And this is the beginning of maybe 70 issues, 80 issues of SHI in less than a decade. And plus other books I published and stuff. And but what's cool is that I got burnt out doing it. And we were doing a monthly SHI book, and our numbers were 35,000 consistently every month, and I just ended it. I'm like, that's it. I want a better story. I want to get back to the character that I had, and I ended it. And which is kind of cool, as opposed to me trying to beat a dead horse and try to keep it going with gimmicks and all. That people are like, when's every show I go to? When are you coming out with new SHI? When are you coming out with new SHI?
And you just gave us a little hint about what the answer to that question is.
Yep, I'm happy to say, and we're gonna launch the Kickstarter in April of 2018. So I'm very excited about it. Very excited. Cool. A comic character grows up, and we'll introduce her daughter, and she's a little pistol herself, and but she has no concept of what her mother's past is, or anything, and it's one big awakening.
It sounds like SHI the movie. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's what I want to. Actually, I'd love for the film to be. We have a film deal with Mimi Gitlin, who's our producer, and I'd love for the SHI film to be what the Return of the Warrior is, but the star is the daughter.
Yeah.
Who has no idea her mother belongs to this race of killers.
Well,
and that's it, Ethan.
Yeah, I really appreciate your talking about this is the beginning of a comic book success story. Yeah. People ask all the time, how do I break into comics? This is kind of how to do it. best case scenario, I mean, you put in 6 or 7 months into drawing.
Yeah, probably a year. Probably a year.
A year into drawing your first issue. That you don't need to do that, listeners. I mean, you know, go ahead and you know, just put a book out. But for goodness sakes, I mean, this is kind of a rags to riches kind of story in comics. Billy became the biggest thing in the 1990s and started something called the bad girl trend, which was non-stop. It was a non-stop money machine. Fans loved it. I remember watching it from my position as artist of Cyber Frog. I was doing the wrong book at the wrong time, and it was phenomenal. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell underneath. You'll get notifications about new videos immediately, and also live sketch videos. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks again, Billy.
Thank you, Ethan. Tally-ho, all.